The silence around her didn't last long. Within moments, the night began to tremble with a distant rumble, a deep rolling thunder that grew louder until it felt like the ground itself was waking up. Headlights cut through the darkness in sharp white beams, slicing across the empty road and stretching toward the gas station like approaching storms. Lena's heart seized. She had heard sounds like this before: engines, boots, men who spoke in threats instead of words. Her pulse raced as the convoy of motorcycles slowed, surrounding her in a loose circle of chrome and shadows. Every instinct she had screamed that she'd run from one nightmare only to fall straight into another. She tried to push herself back, but her body refused to obey. And yet, as the riders dismounted, something strange happened. No shouting. No rough hands reaching for her. Only a quiet tension, as though they weren't looking at prey but at someone who had already suffered more than enough. The man at the front, Reaper, didn't move with the cruelty she expected. His steps were firm, cautious, almost steadying, like he didn't want to scare her more than she already was. In that moment, fear didn't vanish, but a small crack formed where hope could breathe. The night opened with a kind of silence that felt heavy, almost painful, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Out of that darkness stumbled Lena, barefoot and trembling, every step a reminder of what she had just escaped. Dust clung to her blood-streaked legs, her flannel shirt hung off one shoulder, torn and soaked with dried sweat and fear. She looked like someone who had been running for far too long, running from pain, from danger, from people who had stolen more than just her freedom. Her wide, hollow eyes searched for something, anything, that resembled safety, but the empty desert road gave her nothing back. The neon glow of the lonely gas station flickered against her face as she collapsed near the door, her breath shaking, her hands barely steady enough to push her hair from her eyes. And then, in a voice so broken it barely sounded human, she whispered the words that revealed just how deeply she had been shattered: "Just kill me fast, please." It wasn't a plea for death, it was the cry of someone who had forgotten what mercy feels like, someone who didn't believe the world had anything left to offer her but more pain. And yet, the story was only just beginning. As the months passed, Lena began stepping into a version of herself she never thought she'd meet again. The clubhouse that once felt intimidating slowly became a place where laughter didn't scare her and silence didn't feel dangerous. She cooked meals with the guys, learned how to polish chrome until it shined like a mirror, and even caught herself smiling without immediately questioning it. But the real turning point came on the anniversary of her escape, a day she'd once wished she could erase. Reaper didn't say much, he rarely did, but he took her to a tattoo artist the club trusted. She didn't know why until the artist gently brushed his hand over the faded burn on her ribs and said, "Let's give this a new meaning." The words that replaced the old scar were simple but powerful: "I am free." Seeing it inked on her skin brought tears she didn't try to hide. It didn't erase the past, but it rewrote her future. And with that strength, she began helping other women who were trapped in their own nightmares, using her voice to show them freedom wasn't impossible. At a charity ride, as she stood before a crowd of hardened bikers and quiet survivors, she said the line that truly defined her journey: "Sometimes the people you fear the most become the ones who show you what humanity really is." Back at the clubhouse, the world moved at a gentler pace, slower, quieter, almost as if it wanted to give Lena room to breathe again. The men didn't crowd her or demand anything from her. They offered food, a warm place to rest, and something she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. But healing isn't a straight line. The first few nights, she woke up screaming, her hands shaking as memories clawed their way back into her mind. Sudden noises made her jump. Even casual footsteps made her tense, as though expecting someone to drag her back into the darkness she fought so hard to escape. Doc tended to her injuries every day with a calm patience that made her wonder when she'd last experienced kindness without conditions. Reaper kept his distance, not out of coldness, but respect, letting her set the pace of trust on her own terms. One afternoon, she found herself staring at the faded burn in the mirror, the scar that once felt like a life sentence. Reaper's reflection appeared behind her, steady and grounded. And quietly, he told her something she never expected to hear. Asterisk, scars don't disappear, but they stop hurting when you decide what they mean. Asterisk, it was the first time she believed she might someday choose her own meaning. Reaper didn't respond right away. He just stood there, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the burned mark as if he were memorizing every cruel line of it. The men behind him exchanged a look, one of those silent agreements that didn't need words. They had seen violence before, lived in it, survived it. But this wasn't the kind of chaos they chose, this was the kind they corrected. Reaper finally turned toward his crew, his voice low but sharp enough to cut through the heavy air. He didn't shout, didn't make some dramatic speech. He simply said the sentence that sealed the fate of the men who had done this. Asterisk, no one does that to a woman and walks away. Asterisk, with that, everything became motion. Plans were made without hesitation, fueled not by rage alone but by a code they all lived by. The Hell's Angels were not saints, but they believed in a kind of justice that didn't ask permission. Before dawn, engines rumbled again, this time not in intimidation but in purpose. There was no chaos, no reckless violence, just a silent, calculated storm heading toward the Ravens' compound. By sunrise, the desert was quiet once more, and the monsters who branded her no longer existed. Doc moved closer with slow, deliberate care, the kind you use with someone who looks like they might break at the slightest touch. He didn't ask questions, he simply knelt beside her, trying to understand how badly she was hurt. Lena flinched the moment his hand came near her side, her breath catching, her whole body tightening as though expecting pain. Doc hesitated, then gently lifted the edge of her torn shirt, just enough to check for injuries. But the second the fabric rose, everything shifted. The men around her fell completely silent, their expressions hardening as if the air itself had frozen. There, burned into her skin with cruel precision, were the words no one expected to see: property of the Ravens, old, healed over, but unmistakably carved through fire and suffering. Lena's eyes dropped in shame, as though the mark defined her, as though it was something she had to apologize for. She whispered that no one would ever want someone who had already been claimed, already been marked. And for a moment, she looked less like a survivor and more like someone who had been told she didn't deserve humanity at all, but nothing could have been further from the truth.